So now we would start building our application. So the first thing is that let's just check out that CSV file that we have used to create our machine learning model. And I accidentally opened a different file. So now let's just opening the main file. Yeah. So you could see that it has a string type in the model, and also we can check that out here as well. So we need to create for the option that we would give our user, we would have exact names as given in this CSV file, like manual with the M capital and automatic with the A capital and stuff, and exact spelling of the petrol and diesel uh, type, fuel type. Because if we just mess up there, then the model would not be able to calculate the price. So for that we have to create a lot of data in order to create our pickers and steppers as well. For the mileage we are going to use a stepper. So let's first start by creating an instance for our machine learning model. So our machine learning model name is Audi car, and you just, this is how you create an instance. Now you could use the properties inside present inside this class, which is our ML model, and use it inside our structure. Now we would create the basic structure for our views that we are going to show to the user. So one of the views would be uh, pickers in segmented style. You would get a hold of it when I'm actually going to show the UI part. So for now let's just write down the different model names that we need to use, that the user would select between, and those will act as an input eventually. So these are the model names which I'm using for this purpose. Like there are quite a lot of models actually, but I thought that instead of like including every single one of them, it would be better if I include just the main ones which like had most of the sales inside that file. So it would be better, more efficient, I would say. So now that we have done this for the model name, then we would proceed with doing the same thing for the transmission type, the fuel type, and also what the year of manufacture. These three things we will also add, and thus it would be enough for creating the views that we have in mind. Also one thing is that just notice that while I'm writing those names, these names like petrol and diesel, I just wrote, then I would go back to the CSV file and look for it, like have I written the right name or so. And I'm actually starting out with 2013 models. So let's just first make sure if our file actually has a 2013 model in here. So we can easily do that using command F in these files. So yeah, there you go, this is 2013 available, and we can go till about like 2020, I guess. I just checked it beforehand as well, so yeah, we can go about till 2020. So we would have to include all these years. It's about 7 years, I suppose. So this is my personal preference actually, and I think that creating the application this way, like creating static arrays and then using them as picker in segmented form, is better than using the usual traditional picker. So this is a bit of personalization you are giving to your application, and when we would be moving more into our UI part, you would see how I structure this whole thing to look more in a really simple yet powerful way. Now since we have done this much, let's just move on to the UI part now. So for that, like actually just delete the present code, we don't really need it. And I was thinking of using a specific image I had already downloaded beforehand. So for that purpose we are using a Z stack. As you all know that Z stack actually arranges thing in a Z axis. So I would just paste the image first, and this is the image, and I've just given it a simple name as well. So I really like this color, and I was trying to use this color directly from the color property, but I was not really getting it. So to make things easier, I'm just importing the image from the assets folder. And it's quite easy. You just have to give it two modifiers. One would be resizable, then ignoring safe area, and it does the job, as you would see for yourself too. So let's just do this thing and just see how does it look like. All right, so it looks fine. So for now that we have done this much, let's just go on about creating some labels. Like just above the picker, I'm thinking of like giving it a name, so it makes sense for the user to as to what the app is actually asking for. So we are going to use the simple text property, and under that let's just start with the model name. So let's just write model, and we would give it some of the modifiers that I feel like are really good, like important. So one would be font weight, and let's just give it light. Let's give it a different type of feel to it, right? So for that purpose I'm using the font weight as light, and then we would use the font style as title. And obviously I'm just thinking of giving it an ultra light font weight now. I think both are okay. It's totally up to you actually. This is where the personalization comes in. I personally feel like the ultra light gives it a more different approach. Like not really a lot of apps use text in this style. Now that you have done this much, let's just give it some color. So we would go with black, and I feel like it's really okay. And then let's just give it some frame also. Actually this was an optional thing for me, because I thought like I would use the alignment property inside of frame and just align the whole thing to the left hand side, but that didn't work out. Ultimately I had to use a spacer inside of h stack. If you don't know what a spacer is, whenever you put a spacer inside a stack, it just takes up all the space. For example, if you put it inside an edge stack after something, so it would take up all the right hand space and just push the view towards the left. So this is essentially how spacers work. Similarly, if we were to use a spacer inside a V stack, then it would just push the things towards the most upward area or the downwards area, depending on where you put it, before the view or after the view. So yeah, I think that all of the text thing would go on to the left hand side, and at this point it's actually appearing right in the middle of the application, the page, and I don't really think it's good, but we would work on that as well. Ultimately when we will start building more and more of the view, it would come right into fit right into the place. So we don't really need to worry about that for now, and you can just fold it out so that it looks more compact and you understand like what all is going on. So now before creating picker, we actually had to create our state properties. But because without the state properties, the picker won't actually function. We would be using two-way bindings with our state properties to actually read and write the values, which we would be further using inside our integrating our ML model output. So it would make a lot more sense in the next 2-3 videos, but for now let's just create a state property for each of these arrays that we have created. So obviously the first one would go about for the name, so let's just name it simply like name selection, and it would hold an integer value, and you all know that integer value corresponds to a position inside the array. So for example, we are giving it name selection an integer value of 1. That means inside the model name, if we were to use this specific state property with the model name, then the one is the a3 model, and similarly like that. It would make much more sense when we start writing the code for the picker, but for now all we need to do is to just create those state properties that we would be using further. So we have done 3 and we are just down to one more, and once we are like done with it, it's actually quite a big name, so I thought of like giving it a more compact small name. So I just deleted half of the selection word. Makes sense, I guess. Now we would be moving on to much more things in the next lesson, and how we would be using state properties. I will try to attach a video after this